Okay, today we are going to make a size 11 ring out of this silver Don't Tread on Me proof silver round. This particular silver round comes with a nice leatherette case. I'll unfold it, and you can see it's got the Don't Tread on Me paperwork, which gives a little bit of a certificate of authenticity and some descriptive words inside, which talks about it. Of course, the main event is this Don't Tread on Me proof silver. And on the other side, which will be the inside of the ring. Now, this coin is a 1-ounce silver round, and it's roughly the same size as a 1-ounce copper, give or take a little bit. You can see it fits right in my punch hole, but there is a little slop, a little play. So what I'm going to do is cut out a square piece of paper towel, put it in there, and then put the coin in there to take up the slack. Then I will put my 5/8 punch guide over that to even things out. Okay, well, I'm going to take my paper towel, cut out a little square here, put it in with the 1-ounce copper. Again, this is the side that's facing down, which will be facing out when the ring is done. So I'm just going to push it in there, and it takes up any slack in the coin ring press guide there. Then what I'll do is I'll press my washer in, which will make the punch go in the exact center. Okay, well, now I have the 1-ounce silver round inside a paper towel to take up the slop. I've got my washer in there. I'm going to bring it over to the 6-ton press and punch a 5/8 hole in it. Now, the 6-ton press makes this pretty easy. Just making sure I have the right punch for the right hole. Okay. Now, these punches, the straight edge goes down, the beveled side stays up. And now I just give that a couple of pushes with my press and push it through. Now I'll take it over to the 1-ton. Oops. Sorry about that. I'll bring it over to the 1-ton and press it the rest of the way through with a smaller punch. And I'll make sure that I collect the silver piece. You can see it pops right out with a little piece of paper towel. Put that in my 99% silver bucket. And boom. Okay, now we've got our perfectly centered hole. Now I'll bring it over to deburr it. Okay, I've got my 1-ounce silver round in my vise to hold it while I deburr this hole. It's got a little bit of a burred edge there, so I want to remove that. I've put some tape on my jaws to keep from marring the reeded edge of the challenge coin. So what I'll do is I keep my hand under here to catch the shavings, and I just swirl it around. I might need to tighten it a little bit. Oops, just dropped my shavings. And then you can feel it with your finger. You know, this is pretty soft, so it doesn't take much. Okay, next I'm going to anneal this to soften it up a little bit before I start pressing it and folding it and making it into a ring. One trick that most coin ring makers are familiar with is putting a little mark with a Sharpie on the silver. And what that does is, as I heat it up, when the Sharpie mark goes away, I know that it's at the right temperature and not overheated. It's at the right temperature for annealing. So let me grab my tongs and we'll just start heating that up. Now I'm going to use a low flame and I'm going to stay pretty far away from the main flame and just heat it up slowly. Some people turn their lights off and look for a soft glow. It's the middle of the day here, so if I turn the lights off, it's still going to be bright out. And I can turn this side to side. It's a little heavy with these copper tongs. Ordinarily, I might use the needle nose pliers, but I'm afraid those will leave marks on my silver coin ring here. So I'm just going to heat it up slowly. I can see once that mark from the Sharpie starts to fade, I will just dip it in water. Some folks use Sparix number 2 for the dipping, and that keeps fire scale from building up. But since I'm going to be applying an antique patina to this anyway, I will just dunk it in regular water. You can see that Sharpie has faded away. Just dunk it in, shut off my torch, and here we go. I'll just dry it off and over to the press. Alright, to start my initial fold, I've found my folding die, which is a either a silver dollar size or American silver eagle. You know, these 1 ounce silver rounds fit right in there without a problem. And I'm going to use my cones to start folding in the 1-ton press. Now, because the throat of my press is so long, I'm going to use one of the other dies just as kind of a stand. And you know, nothing magical about that. And I'll take a cone. I have these stainless steel cones I got from online on Etsy. Some people will wrap these with Teflon tape to prevent metal on metal contact. However, I found with these smooth stainless steel ones, you know, it's not, I don't run into the detail getting marred. So that might be an extra step if you want, but I don't do it. I'll put a link at the bottom of my video as to where I get these. So I'm going to pick one that has a hole about the same size as what I'm starting out with. You can see that one fits in there nicely. So I'm going to use that one at first. It's a good idea to lube up the inside of your die a little bit. I just use some white lithium grease. People use WD-40, people use soap, people use the commercially available lube for dies. You just want to make it a little bit smoother for your coin to kind of slide around out there. So, now the key is here to make sure this is level when it goes into the die. I'll move the camera over here so you can see that a little bit. So if you start out crooked, you're going to end up crooked. And you got to keep an eye on it. You can't just do this press in one fell swoop, because sometimes these coins have a tendency to shift in the die. And you know, this is the beginning process of the ring, so you don't want to rush it and get crazy. Now my cone set came with this little spacer, which, you know, in terms of leverage on my press, it gives me a little bit of, you know, it makes the handle start out in an upright position. But actually on this one I'm a little too high up, so I'm going to just eliminate that. And now I'm at a good height for my arm. You can see, you know, I can get normal type of leverage from that. So let me just, you know, these 1 ounce silvers, they look big and heavy, but being 99.9% silver, they're pretty soft and easy to handle. So what I'll do is I'll just move this around a little bit. It started to move a little bit sideways, so you just back up a little bit, make sure everything's squared away, and press again. You know, patience at this stage is key. If you rush it, you're going to end up with, you know, cockeyed ring, which you could straighten out later, but it's easier if you just keep it straight the whole way. So you can see it's starting to get that cone shape. Sorry, with these coins, they're so silver and shiny, it's pretty bright. Now what I can do is I can move up to my next bigger cone size. And I still have plenty of room in this die, so I'm going to push it down a little bit more. You don't want to get greedy and just keep smashing it down, because the time you save... actually, I'm going to go with the next smaller cone because it still has a bit to go. Now here's where that little spacer comes in handy. It makes your position of your handle work out pretty well. Now I'll just kind of push down a little bit. Take a look at how we're doing. You can see that cone shape is nice and even. And I'll take a look. See, this is a two-sided die. I don't want to push it down too far, but I still have about 1/4 of an inch of travel space to go. So I'm going to, I believe I should go to the bigger cone now. Yep, it fits in the hole without touching too much of the detail inside. And I will then put the spacer back on, pardon my arm, and press some more. Very good. Now, this is a normal folding die. In fact, this is a stabilizing folding die. It's got a little edge on it here and here. It's for silver dollars or American Silver Eagles. Coin Ring USA, a little shout out there. But as you can see, it's good for folding over these big 1 ounces. Eventually, I will move to these extrusion dies, also known as Swedish wrap dies. You know, once I get it small enough to fit in, I'll be able to just do the extrusion die technique through there, which saves a lot of the detail. Now, I'm going to anneal this again because you can feel it when you're pressing it. The first couple of presses, nice and easy, nice and soft. You know, over time it hardens up a little bit. It work hardens and time hardens. So that last press I could feel it was just giving a little bit more resistance. Why it's pretty good to use these 1-ton arbor presses because you can feel what's going on in the handle. When you use this 6-ton A-frame, you lose a little bit of the feel, but on the tougher, more robust rings, you know, you might need a 6-ton to get past that. So I'm going to take a second and go anneal this. I'm going to put the Sharpie marker on, heat it with my torch, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back from annealing, and as you can see, you know, I still have this nice cone shape. The Sharpie was just starting to fade when I was heating it up, so I dipped it in the water. You can see it's really fading right there in the center, on the inside. You'll notice too that my detail is still remaining intact as I press, and the detail on the outside is remaining intact, and that's key. So before I go over to the ring stretcher, I just want to, in order to fit in my extrusion dies in a couple more steps, I need to get this outer rim size, you know, to be substantially smaller than this die. You can see it doesn't fit in there, and I'm going to be putting it in this way. If I put it in like this and I just crush it past that ridge, I'm going to lose a lot of detail and really mess up the ring. So I want to make sure that not only is it small enough to fit in this die later on, it also has to fit in that die with about 10 or 15 layers of plumber's tape, Teflon tape wrapped around it. So I'm going to press this down in this die with my cones a little bit more to widen that inner opening up, and also to squish that reeded edge down just a tad. So let's see, put my big cone in there. The cone and spacer, the cones and spacer come as a kit. Again, that's Coin Ring USA on Etsy. And I'll just press it. As I'm pressing it, I'm watching it in the die to make sure it doesn't go sideways or off center or anything. So still nice cone shape, nice and even all the way around. Detail is still doing well in there, eternal vigilance. All right, let's see. All right, what I will do here, before I open it up on the ring stretcher, I'll actually use this die as an extrusion die, because the more I press with that cone in the center, I'm going to end up risking losing some detail. So I'm going to wrap this up with 10 times, put it in this die, use one of my aluminum pushers and just push it down. Start the extrusion process a little bit sooner. And on these big silver rounds, that's important because they just are kind of big to fit in. Now you can go online and buy all sorts of special dies to fit these. I'm kind of using ones that were maybe for a little smaller coin and just kind of making do, but it's certainly a reasonable approach. So I've lost count of how many turns, but now I fold this Teflon tape over the reeded edge again to protect it. I'm going to be using aluminum push rods to push down in this die, but aluminum is probably on par with silver as far as hardness goes. So now I have these aluminum pushers, various sizes. These I got on eBay from Mike Stills. He's a machinist in North Carolina, I believe, but you can find them on eBay. This set of pushers is great, because what I can always do is find a size that fits roughly the size of the reeded edge in there, so it doesn't slip and move around. Press down firmly and evenly onto the coin ring. And that's the biggest one I have, so I believe I'll go with that. Yep. Okay. Now the key here is to make sure it's perfectly level. I'm just going to give it a little squash it, just so everything squashes down a little bit, so that I'll bring that cut edge back out on the ring stretcher behind me, and then I'll be able to use the extrusion dies to get it to a size 11. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to go to a size 11 on this, which means I'll bring it up to size maybe 13 and a half, and then squish it down to a size 11. So let me give this a little bit of a press. I can feel it. And there. Now you see that Teflon tape protected the edge, and I still have a nice cone shape. The detail is still preserved. The inner detail is looking nice still. Now will this fit in my, see, now it fits in that extrusion die. So once I stretch this bottom end out on the ring stretcher, I'll be able to extrude it down nicely. So I will anneal this again, and then we'll meet you over at the ring stretcher. Well, I figured I might as well show you another round of the annealing while I'm at it. Not sure if you can see it too clearly with the ring stretcher in the way. I just go around and around. I have the Sharpie marker marked in there. And again, when that starts to fade away, I will dunk it in the water Okay. And nailing it this time will make it easier to work on the ring stretcher. So I'll just reach in, dip it on a paper towel, dry it off. Alright, now we're ready to pop it on the ring stretcher. I'm going to probably stretch it all the way to the bottom here, because that'll bring it up to a 14-ish. Then when I throw it on my real size mandrel, that'll probably be more like a 13. What I want to do though is preserve the inner detail. I don't want metal on metal contact here. So I'm going to wrap the ring stretcher with some clear plastic to take the brunt away from that. So I have this kind of clear cellophane that was on a greeting card of all things. And I will cut roughly a 6-inch strip. So, about an inch wide or so. So I have plenty of room. Some people use shop towels, paper towels, you name it. I will put on my little mechanic's glove here because I find twisting the ring as I'm stretching it, that helps. It gives me a better grip. So you see I just wrap it around here. And now I will drop the ring down on it. And I can start to stretch. This is a vintage Dixon ring stretcher that I bought. I found it on Craigslist for $75 from a jewelry shop that was going out of business. They were retiring. So, of course, I looked online and other places for a vintage Dixon ring stretcher, and this is worth several $100s, so I feel like I got a good deal. So if you're looking for a ring stretcher, keep your eyes open. There's lots of deals on eBay here and there, Craigslist locally. In fact, I wasn't even looking for a ring stretcher online. I was looking for another jewelry cabinet for another purpose. And in the background of the jewelry cabinet ad was this ring stretcher. So I sent them an email, said, hey, you selling the ring stretcher too? And yes. So anyway, little backstory. So I'll throw this on my mandrel. On my cut edge, I'm at 14.5-ish. Like I said, I want to be at a size 11. So what I'm going to do now is I will wrap this in Teflon tape and do the extrusion. Some people call it the Swedish die method. I call it the extrusion die because you're extruding it through. Swedish die refers to the person who first came up with that technique. So he was Swedish, so they call it the Swedish, and wrapping the coin ring in Teflon, hence the name Swedish wrap. I just prefer to call it the extrusion technique, since technically that's what you're doing. So what I will do now is bring it back over to the 1-ton arbor press. We'll wrap this up, press it through the extrusion dies until we get to maybe a 12, and then we'll see how we can round the edges to make it an 11. Now these have very big, thick, reeded edges, so as my sizing gets smaller in the extrusion, I'm going to need to, at some point, take my deburring tool and cut away some of the inner material, but that's not until this kind of gets folded over a little bit more. So let me move over to the 1-ton. We'll wrap this